Welcome to the Papyrus Global Television National News Update. Here are today's headlines. US-Israel-Iran war escalates with reciprocal strikes and proxy involvement. Civilian casualties reported in Iran and Iraq amid ongoing airstrikes. Regional powers engage in diplomatic efforts to contain conflict. Oil prices surge as Middle East tensions threaten global supply. UN calls for immediate ceasefire and humanitarian access. Cyber attacks target critical infrastructure in the region. US and Israeli officials stress strategic objectives in the conflict. Iran confirms military response and mobilization of regional allies. Humanitarian organizations warn of growing refugee crisis. Global stock markets react to heightened geopolitical risk. And now the news in full. The armed confrontation involving the United States, Israel and Iran continues to dominate international headlines as military, diplomatic and economic consequences ripple across multiple regions. What began on 28 February 2026 with coordinated US and Israeli strikes on Iranian military infrastructure has evolved into a sustained conflict, marked by reciprocal attacks, proxy involvement and mounting civilian casualties. Analysts describe the situation as the most serious escalation in the Middle East since 2019, with potential long-term effects on regional stability and global energy markets. Civilian areas in Iran and Iraq have reported casualties following targeted airstrikes and missile attacks in March 2026. Tehran authorities confirmed that at least 45 civilians were injured in urban centers, including Ahaz and Qom, while Baghdad reported damage to residential areas near military installations. Humanitarian groups have warned that prolonged hostilities could exacerbate displacement, disrupt access to essential services, and strain local health systems already coping with pandemic recovery and economic pressures. Regional powers have initiated diplomatic channels to contain the escalation. On 30th March 2026, envoys from Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Qatar convened in Istanbul to mediate preliminary talks aimed at de-escalating the confrontation and preventing further cross-border incidents. While the discussions signal a willingness to negotiate, officials caution that immediate results are unlikely due to the deep-rooted strategic and ideological divides among the parties involved. Global oil prices surged past $118 per barrel on 29 March 2026, reflecting fears of supply disruptions from the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, through which a significant portion of crude oil exports transit. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC called an emergency session to monitor market volatility, emphasizing the need for stabilization measures. Energy analysts note that continued escalation could further destabilize energy markets and increase inflationary pressures worldwide. The United Nations has issued urgent calls for an immediate ceasefire and unrestricted humanitarian access. Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasized on 28 March 2026 that all parties must protect civilian lives and ensure the delivery of food, medicine, and medical evacuation services. UN agencies are coordinating with NGOs to provide assistance in conflict-affected zones, including southern Iraq and eastern Iran, where displacement is rapidly rising. We will now go on a short break and the news will continue when we come back.
2026. The Papyrus Global launches new series starting Tuesday, 3rd March 2026. The conversation starts now across Africa. Our languages may differ, our borders may separate us, but our struggles bear semblance. Communities seeking opportunities, youth demanding inclusion, citizens calling for transparency. These are realities that unite us. Africa is united by a common challenge and a common responsibility, building resilient, inclusive, and sustainable communities. To set this conversation in motion, the Papyrus Global is launching the pre-conference live series, Governance That Touches Lives. Let's start where it matters the most.
Welcome back, and now the news will continue. Cybersecurity threats have emerged alongside the physical conflict, Critical infrastructure, including energy grids, communication networks, and financial institutions, has been targeted by suspected state-sponsored cyber attacks. Experts warn that prolonged cyber operations could disrupt regional and global supply chains, compromise sensitive data, and amplify economic instability. US and Israeli officials have reiterated their strategic objectives in the conflict. Pentagon spokesperson Lieutenant General Marcus Holt stated on 27 March 2026 that operations aim to degrade Iran's missile and drone capabilities while minimizing civilian casualties. Israeli defense forces confirmed ongoing precision airstrikes targeting military sites in Iran and southern Lebanon, emphasizing defensive postures and regional security imperatives. Iran has confirmed its military response, mobilizing allied groups in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. On 29 March, Tehran reported successful missile strikes on military convoys and strategic installations in northern Israel, marking a notable expansion of the conflict's geographic scope. Military analysts warn that the growing involvement of regional proxies could prolong hostilities and complicate diplomatic resolutions. Humanitarian organizations warn that the conflict is triggering a growing refugee crisis. Displaced populations from southern Iraq and southwestern Iran are reportedly seeking shelter in border towns and neighboring countries. Relief agencies have highlighted urgent needs for food, clean water, healthcare, and temporary housing, emphasizing that international support and rapid aid delivery are critical to prevent further humanitarian deterioration. Global financial markets have reacted sharply to the heightened geopolitical risk. Stock exchanges in Europe, Asia, and North America recorded significant volatility on 30th March, reflecting investor concerns over prolonged instability in the Middle East. Analysts predict that continued escalation could impact trade flows, energy pricing, and investment confidence, underscoring the interconnectedness of security and economic stability. We have reached the end of today's international news segment. Here is a recap of the headlines. US-Israel-Iran war escalates with reciprocal strikes and proxy involvement. Civilian casualties reported in Iran and Iraq amid ongoing airstrikes. Regional powers engage in diplomatic efforts to contain conflict. Oil prices surge as Middle East tensions threaten global supply. UN calls for immediate ceasefire and humanitarian access. Cyber attacks target critical infrastructure in the region. US and Israeli officials stress strategic objectives in the conflict. Iran confirms military response and mobilization of regional allies. Humanitarian organizations warn of growing refugee crisis. Global stock markets react to heightened geopolitical risk. For continued updates, expert analysis, and live coverage, stay connected with the Papyrus Global Television. Visit papyrusdaily.com for breaking news and detailed reports. I am your host, Christiana Babayo. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and informed.